Welcome to the Soapbox. It's pretty late on a Friday night on February 10th, 2023. I'm here. It's Dennis and our friend Jason, aka Coach, aka Coacher, whatever you want to call him.
What's
Uh,
up?
right before we hopped on here, Ricky just let me know he's feeling pretty wiped out, so he's not going to be joining us. So it's just you and me.
That's
Uh,
how Dennis and Coke hangout is always a good thing.
we just got done spending way too much time talking about Ant-Man. I love that movie, and so I don't mind actually. I feel bad when I make the show so long that people are like, "How long is this? How long are these guys going to keep going?"
Yeah. Well,
I
you've
really,
known me long enough to know how long I could babble. I can
yeah,
go
I
on
really
forever.
I try for that at an hour and a half mark, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. But here we are now, and you're no longer beholden to talking about Ant Man or even Marvel if you don't want to. You can talk about whatever you want.
Oh no, all good, man. I mean, I I don't want to necessarily retrace what we just talked about, but I just kind of fell in love with not just Ant Man, but the MCU all over again. Rewatching that movie has got me thinking, like planning out my next Marvel marathon. I kind of want to go back and start watching more because you know me, I'm not hardcore with those with the movies of the universe, but
Yeah.
I do enjoy them all. I'm just not really a student of them. I'm not like a hardcore fan. But now I'm going, man, there's probably a lot more to these that I should know. So I'm thinking like maybe I should talk to Dennis about some good graphic novels to pick up. Maybe I should get my history lesson on. That is a really cool kind of uh, reintroduction to the universe, and I'm really excited after watching that one again.
Yeah. I will say after, what, we're like 25, 26 movies deep. It's really hard for me as a comic fan to recommend the books to someone who has enjoyed the MCU for this long.
Mm,
Because the thing about the comics is there's so many different writers trying different takes on things that like you end up with a lack of internal consistency. But the
mm,
reason there's a lack of internal consistency is because it's decades of writing stories, you know what I mean? So like really what it comes down to is like everybody who's a fan of Marvel is a fan of a specific time period where they were reading comics, and that's their era. You know what I mean? And so it just coincidentally happens that a lot of the stuff that the movies are pulling inspiration from is all from comics that took place in the 2000s. Like it's a lot more 2000s than 1960s that they're referencing most of the time.
mm.
But there's the DNA of the 60s is in there too and stuff, like when it gets trippy when Ant-Man goes to the quantum realm, or when, like I said before, when Doctor Strange goes to the astral projection kind of stuff, like the visuals, there's no reason not to reference the visuals from the psychedelic, 60s and 70s and stuff like that. So because they just hit it so right the first time. But yeah, the thing I like about the MCU is there's a committee that is responsible for the consistency across
Mm.
the board of all of
Smart,
it,
smart.
and it just makes it feel so cohesive, you know what I mean? Like,
Now, let me ask you this: as a dude who's well versed in the lore, do you feel like they've been doing a good job in maintaining the law, so to speak?
well, I think yes and no, like in the sense that uh, I think here's my long-winded answer for it. Like, how I was just saying a minute ago, like how every fan is not a fan of every comic ever. They're a fan of a specific time period where like with it they associate, right? The
Mm,
trick with that is like if you don't, if you started with Stan Lee, you know, as the writer back in the day, or the artists also filling in blanks to create the story as well, because the writers were known for adding things that weren't in Stan Lee's scripts, and that's really, or, I mean, the artists were.
Mm.
So if you look at the works of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and whatever other artists he paired with, if you look at those as like the holy Bible of the Marvel universe, then the awkward thing is if you kept going after Stan Lee left, isn't it technically fan fiction, right? Like everything
Wow.
continues after Stan and the original artists weren't doing it anymore. I
Hmm.
mean, obviously they set up a business, right? It's a business that's meant to keep going well after those people
Of course.
move on. But everything they do is technically fan fiction, right? Because they didn't create these IPs, they didn't create these things.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
And so, like, if you allow for them to retcon stories or add nuances that weren't there before, or changes just completely to the characters or the stories or the backgrounds or the universe, whatever, then you have to be willing to allow those changes to keep coming in whatever medium those stories jump to, right? And so, because if you don't, like, you're a hypocrite, right? Like, I think you're kind of a hypocrite, because like everything after Stan Lee is technically just not canon,
Right.
except for the fact that like Marvel says it's canon. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's, yeah.
Interesting. That's an interesting take on it, and I think that kind of plays to part of the reason I want to learn a bit more about the old stuff. And this is weird timing, but I swear on a stack of Bibles this is true. Just this morning, as I was taking my daughters to school, one of my girls, I was playing some music on Spotify, and one of my girls mentioned that she really likes that song "Fantasy" by Mariah Carey.
Mhm.
And so she said, "Oh, will you play it?" And I said, "Yeah." Where does that come from? Have you ever heard it before? You ever heard anything like it before? And she didn't
James
know.
Brown.
Yeah,
James
she didn't know
Brown.
"Genius of Love" by the Tom Tom Club, which was
Yeah.
and the interest is so for them. And my daughter, I have twin daughters; they're almost 17. For them, the Mariah Carey song is kind of old school, and they have no idea of its real
Yeah.
origins. You know,
Yeah.
the beat is literally from Tom Tom Club, which is like 82 or 83, way back in the early MTV days. They had this animated video for it, and
Yeah.
I want them to have that knowledge of where the thing they like came from. And likewise, you
I
know, when
get
it
that.
comes to Marvel, even if it's totally different, and it's probably it might break a few things that I'm used to, I just kind of want to, you know, have that foundation of, oh,
Yeah.
this is what all that stuff was built on.
Incidentally, I went to like my first drag show in December, and it's like a big one. It's like a tour that they do. It's like a Christmas special that Jinx Monsoon and Ben Delacreme do, and it's a whole like duo. It's a comedic duo, and they're doing like the story about like how one of them has like no Christmas spirit, and the other one wants to like find the Christmas spirit, and so they end up through like some magic, Christmas magic, traveling through time,
Mm.
and they have a running gag where every decade they go to, that music is on the radio. Uh,
Oh wow.
that specific song is on the radio every decade that they go to, and
Okay, okay.
it's pretty funny.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so it's just, that's how it is, though, right? Things are cyclical and stuff. So, but yeah, I just I I'm not. I don't want to be a purist. Like, I can't be a purist anymore. Like, I can't. There was a time where I was so deep reading so many comics that I thought, you had to be a purist to like, you had to appreciate this stuff. But then I think it was once I came to that realization that like, well, if I'm really a purist, then I shouldn't really like anything that came after Stan Lee, right? Because
Right.
but I don't really want to go back and read Stan Lee's stuff because it's not written for me. It's written for the people going through everything that was going on in the 60s. You know what I mean? Like it's written from a different time and for a different perspective.
Yeah,
And if you go back and read those comics, it's so wordy and like the art is nowhere near as good as what we have now, you know what I mean? And like comics just have to evolve with the times. Like that's what they have to be in order to be as to have the longevity that they have, you know? And
mm,
so like and they have to change the status quo constantly. And so I think in order, if you're going to jump ship to a different medium like movies, you have to change the status quo. And so
for sure.
like I have to be okay with the fact that Darren Cross is probably MODOK in the new movie, even though Darren Cross is not MODOK in the comics.
Oh, right, I get you.
And I'm like, it's okay, it's fine, because would I rather they just never have MODOK? Because those are my options, really, right? You know, and so it's when I see the changes coming and going, like I just accept that like this is that universe, you know, like this is its own universe. And they do as much as they possibly can to nod and wink and pay tribute to the works of Stan Lee and Jack and Kirby and stuff like that. But it has to be its own thing that's socially relevant now, you know, like it has to like I think that's why Captain America Winter Soldier is one of my favorite movies of the Marvel universe, is because it's so topical, right? It's so topical about like uh, what level of surveillance are we willing to allow
Mm,
our government have over us, you know, and yeah, it's just a great exploration into stuff that is concerning to us, you know what I mean? Whereas like Ant-Man's not topical, like it's just but it is always relevant, right? It's always relevant because it's like it's about the love of a father and a daughter, and
right.
and that will always be timeless. And so like I appreciate that Ant-Man's timeless. Like I wonder, is there a time that we might watch Captain America Winter Soldier and not feel it's as relevant, or feel it's more relevant, you know what I mean? Like certain stories just change, the value of them changes over time. And so
Yeah,
sometimes certain stories you just happen to find really age well, and I think Ant-Man is one of those that ages really well. And then other ones that don't age as well, like Iron Man. Like I think Iron Man's a great movie, but it's getting a little weirder as time goes by, to be reminded of how like he straight up bangs that reporter in the beginning of the movie. Like, and
yep,
like,
yep,
you know what I mean? Like it's getting a little weirder as we keep going, to have that documented and like have the little bit of misogyny in there and stuff like that, so
for sure.
um yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I went through the same thing. I may have even mentioned this to you before, but a few years ago, I introduced my daughters to arguably a classic comedy, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure,
Yeah.
and that was when I had to explain to my daughters the word fags, because they
Yeah.
hug each other and they lean back and say that. At the time, wasn't it, it was kind of a common thing to do. What's that big a deal? But fast forward, you go, that's really not cool now. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm glad to know the history of it, and I can explain to them, hey, you know what? At the time, people didn't think that was such a big deal. Now we get that that's not cool. And likewise with the MCU, I'm kind of looking at it the way I look at music, in the sense that I don't think everybody needs to be a fan of the Beatles, but I think you should have at least some understanding of their importance in
Hmm.
music history. And that's kind of why I want to learn a little bit more about the old school Marvel comics, because I think you're absolutely right. There's probably a lot of stuff that was hit or miss way back in the day, but and just like not every Beatles song is a classic, but I just want to learn a little bit more about what this house that I really enjoy right now was built on. So I'm not gonna go do a deep dive, but I kind of want to find some of the gold from back in the day and learn
Yeah.
a bit more about that.
If you really wanted to, like, I always recommend Marvel Unlimited, which is
Okay.
it's like the digital app, like that you can just read comics like on
Hmm.
your phone or your tablet. They used to have it available to read on your computer, but they got rid of that, which is, I guess, okay because the PC experience was terrible. But reading a comic on your tablet is super cool, man.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. Like and I don't really miss the experience of like turning the pages anymore. Like I don't miss it at all. I
Well,
have
you can
boxes of,
zoom in on the cells too, right?
yeah, you can
That's
zoom in
dope.
on stuff, and so I like it because it's like 75 bucks a year.
Mhm.
And if you knew how much comics are nowadays, they're like 4 or 5 bucks a pop.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So you just go and read like, I don't know, like 15 comic books in a year. Like and you've already you got the value basically, you know what I mean? So
that's not crazy money.
yeah, so like I do Marvel Unlimited, and like I'll go months without reading anything, but then I'll just find a story and I'll just binge, and I'll just
Mm.
binge it all, and then I'm like, "Oh, look, I got my money's worth for the year." And I'm good. So that's a good place because they have like a lot of like different categorizations like Netflix does, you know what I mean? Like
Okay,
if you
okay.
want to read like the classic stories, or if you want to read stories by a certain art author or a certain artist or whatever, or if you want to, here's the best, here's the top Spider-Man stories, or here's this top Dark Phoenix stories, or whatever, like they have all these different events and different ways, organization and stuff, so you can go find the things. um
Interesting.
but I'll say this, like, sometimes I do, like, I know a lot about a lot of Marvel, like a lot. But like there are some times where I have gaps in my knowledge, right? Like, so for example, Moon Knight. I know who Moon Knight is peripherally.
Mm.
I know that there was a time in the 2000s when I was collecting everything that I did buy Moon Knight, a miniseries, and I was just like, I don't know really what I'm reading right now, and so I didn't keep going with it, right? So when the Moon Knight show came out last year, I admitted, I'm like, you know what? I don't know what the hell I'm doing with this
I gotta
one.
step my game up.
And so I went in to Marvel Unlimited, and I was like, you know what? I just want to read the first time Moon Knight ever appeared, ever. And it's in like Werewolf by Night number 34 or something like that. I don't remember what, and it's a random story. And I read it, and it was terrible. And then,
Wow.
but at the time, it was enough. It was enough that people were like, "Who's this Moon Knight character? We want more of him." And so they sent letters in, and Marvel's like, "People want
We
Moon
got
Knight.
one.
Let's do it." So then they did Moon Knight number one, and they kind of retold the story a little bit more, but different, than what you got the first time around. And so I read Moon Knight number one, and I was like, that's still pretty terrible and kind of racist. Cool. And then like,
Wow.
then like maybe 5, 6 years later, they do a relaunch of the title to, because every now and then they got to do a new number one to get new readers on board. So they do a new number one where they'll add in new elements that you didn't know about the character, or they'll change some backstories or whatever. They'll change some things.
Mhm.
I ended up reading every Moon Knight number one that has come out since Moon Knight ever came out. I read 7 different comics that all told his origin slightly differently each time,
Wow.
or gave you uh, different looks into that character each time. Barely ever changing the status quo, but
Mm.
always just adding something relevant to the now, like whatever the now was. And each time I read it, I was like, okay, I definitely understand who the character is, but all of these are garbage compared to the TV show. Like, in my
Mm.
opinion, in my opinion. And so there's something to be said about that. Like I understand what you're saying is like do I feel like I better understand what I like about Moon Knight because I did that? Yeah, because like I think that the show added so many layers of depth to the character that like that made him feel like a real person even though he's also this crazy mystical creature that's like a servant of some Egyptian god and like
Yeah.
it's very fantastical shit. But like I actually felt that I understood who Mark was when I watched this story. So you could do that. You could go and read the original first appearance of Spider-Man and then all his other number ones that have ever happened again and what you might end up saying is like, "Nah, I'm good with Tom Holland." Like, I'm just kidding. I'm good with it. Like I'm just good with it. I'm just letting you know that's how I am. Like I do the reading because I want to feel like I'm coming from a place of I'm not talking out of my ass. You know what I mean? Like I know what this is, but like in all honesty, I find that majority of the time the MCU has just created a more bite-sized, digestible experience for a wider audience, and that's what I appreciate because that's all I ever wanted. Because like I've told you before, when I was a young teenager who was just learning about comics like late in life, like learning how awesome they are, and I would carry him around in my little trapper keeper. And one time I dropped my trapper keeper in between class, and my Spider-Man comics that were still bagged and boarded, like fell on the ground.
Mm.
And instead of just helping me pick them up, these random little teenage girls that I didn't know just looked at my comics and looked at me and just laughed. And it was the first time I felt shame for appreciating these things. I didn't know it was bad
Yeah,
to
never saw it as a bad thing, right?
to
Yeah.
like these things, right? And the moment I felt that judgment and shame, like the moment I realized, like, oh wow, like this is not something that everybody really enjoys and likes, and in fact, you're made fun of for it. Like that's so weird. Like and as a teenager with all the hormones and stuff, obviously you feel all kinds of things that you didn't know
Yeah.
you're and so yeah, for me, I I'm so happy to know that like now it's just normalized. Like it's just a normalized thing. Like you're actually not cool if you don't know about the MCU. You know what I mean? Like it's become it's this generation's Star Wars, but to like a crazy
Yeah,
extent.
no doubt. No
You
doubt.
know what I mean? Like Star Wars pulled off in the 1970s and 80s has nothing on what Marvel has pulled off. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it really doesn't. Like do I will I does it take away from the epicness of Star Wars in my mind? No. But I'm just saying like I wish I was the kid who got to experience the MCU because that is a crazy ride that they went on for 26 movies, something like that. I don't even know. Like how many? Like to the point where we have TV shows and we can nitpick them and say like, "Oh, this one's just mid or whatever." Like I don't it's so weird. I can't really fault most Marvel things period because the amount of goodwill that they've built is too much. It's too much for me to ever like just say no. You finally jumped the shark. You don't know what you're doing anymore because they know what they're doing because they have 60 years of comics to reference if they want to. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what you're talking about is it's evidence of a huge shift in society that's happened over the last several decades in that somebody like young Dennis, who's got these comic books and is shamed for it by the cool kids or the regular kids, is sort of like a I don't want to pump up your ego too much. This is just an analogy, but take a Bill Gates and a Steve Jobs, industry titans, as they were nerds. They were absolutely nerds as young people. And I'm sure they got crapped on in their younger days, but it's like those guys changed the world now. And the nerdy guys who used to look at comic books are part of the cool crowd now, because the MCU is everything. People, and I understand it's totally different, but people get excited about new DC movies, and there has definitely been this shift of things that were traditionally mocked that are now celebrated. Personality types and hobbies. Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast. They went through their open gaming license stuff very publicly over the past several weeks, and it was headline news. Whereas 20 years ago, nobody gave a damn about Dungeons and Dragons on a large scale. So there's been this real major shift that's been interesting to see.
No, it's funny you mentioned that, because we had Brian on the show a couple weeks back for Masters of the Universe. We watched the old Dolph Lundgren movie.
Oof.
And what was really funny is Brian asked if we could talk about the open gaming license thing, right? And so we did, and he was like, "So yeah, Dungeons and Dragons is in the news." And I interrupted him and I said, "You know what's so funny about this? This is just to show how mainstream things have become."
Yes.
Do you remember when we were kids and Dungeons and Dragons was in the news? It was in the news for a very different thing back then.
Exactly. It was turning kids satanic.
Yes, it was a satanic panic. And here we are 20 years later, and it's a corporate fiasco going on with the business, because too many people are profiting off of the work that their employees would put into it. And I'm like, what is going on with the world? It's so weird, the shift in culture. Yeah, that happens.
Big time. I mean, video games come around, they start making millions of dollars, and then the world is flipped on its head. What was the Tom Hanks movie that was sort of anti D&D?
I remember that one.
Yeah,
I don't remember the movie, but it's all about him getting wrapped up in some crazy cult.
Yeah,
or some crazy. He ends up hiding, he ends up in a cave at some point and stuff.
Yep. That was wild.
No, I know.
Well, hey man, let me ask you this. Since you're kind of my subject matter expert, and I don't even know how to ask the question. Maybe it's not even a question as much as a statement I'd like your reaction to. So, Tobey Maguire is Spider-Man, and they make a couple movies with him. And then Andrew Garfield is Spider-Man. They basically make the same freaking movie with him. And then Tom Holland is Spider-Man. They make the same freaking origin movie with him.
They didn't make the same origin movie with Tom Holland.
But they make origin movies with these guys.
They skipped his origin movies. They didn't even give you his origin.
In his first one?
Tom Holland, you never see him get bit by a spider. You never see Uncle Ben die. You never even hear the words Uncle Ben in Tom Holland's.
Interesting. But I mean, the point is they kind of kept starting over with Spider-Man, and then now Tom Holland is the dude for many, many, many movies in the MCU. Was that they were just kind of rudderless at the time and were trying to figure it out? Or do you know if there was some sort of
I know that
some plan behind it?
I know that Sony is contractually required to put out a Spider-Man movie every 3 years, or else they lose the license. They lose ownership. They lose the rights. Yeah, that's the clause. Is they actually own him in perpetuity as long as they put out a Spider-Man movie every X number of years.
That's interesting. But do you know if there was any contractual issue with for example, Tobey Maguire saying he,
Well, I think at some point, Sam Raimi just didn't want to keep going with it, and I think Tobey didn't want to keep going with it, and so they just figured the best thing they could do is do a new take on it. And so I did like Andrew Garfield's take on it because it was
I did too.
a younger, more charming, less autistic version of Spider-Man.
Okay.
Like honestly, like I take a lot of crap from like some other, like Frank and stuff, like because I badmouth Toby's Spider-Man, or I badmouth Toby's Peter Parker in those movies a lot because that guy is so on the spectrum, and like in the most insulting of ways possible. I know that's not appropriate to say, but like he has the worst social interactions ever in that movie. Like he's so ridiculous of a character that even the bus driver trolls him. You know what I mean? Like it's that
Hmm.
bad. Like like he just doesn't. I don't understand how he could ever end up with Mary Jane in that universe. Like
That's interesting.
it's so unbelievable like that he's not in special ed. Um when I watch
Wow,
when
you
I
going
watch
hard
those
on my man.
when I watch those movies, uh and 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 what I really liked about Andrew Garfield is cuz I think if you actually go back and ever read uh, uh the original comics, what's really awkward is like, yes, we love to paint the picture of Spider-Man being this like completely like introverted, or sorry, Peter Parker being this introverted uh nerd who gets picked on and laughed at by all the cool kids and stuff like that. But the reality is Peter Parker gets some ass, man. He pulls a lot of hot women in a short
Really?
amount of time in those high school years.
Hmm.
And it's because the comics also wish fulfillment, right? Like that's kind of why the comic was the breakout success that it was. Is it's Stanley created a world where what if the nerdiest kid ever
Became the cool kid,
suddenly
right?
became infused with all this confidence because of this great new power he found. But he's also got responsibility, just to be sure.
Hmm.
But yeah, but what if he became super awesome? And then suddenly all the girls started seeing that confidence and really were interested in him. You know what I mean? So like they like it's revisionist history, right? Like people like to make you remember, oh, he's super nerdy and like he gets bullied by Flash Thompson.
Hmm.
But yeah, but like he dated like everybody, man. He dated everybody.
And you
And
never got
so
that from Toby's Peter?
I never got that Toby was capable of dating human beings. Like
Wow,
I
man.
like I just didn't believe it. Like it just the only reason I believed that Mary Jane was into Peter is because he was next door and he was better than her dad that was physically beating her. Like
Huh.
like they set her up as an abuse victim
Yeah.
in those movies.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if this is a healthy relationship between these two characters at all. I feel like there's a lot of codependence going on here.
Yeah, he
Um,
was kind of a rebound dude for her. You know, I felt
yeah,
like he was a temporary stop on her journey, for sure.
yeah. And so like I do I like his Spider-Man? Yeah, I love watching him swing around the city. I love how many poses, how many things are captured from straight out of the comics. But like I couldn't reconcile with his Peter Parker. Like the more and more I got older, the more I realized like this is a very specific Peter that is like it's like it's a revisionist history version of Peter is what it is. Like
Wow, man.
I know that Sam Raimi would like to think that that's what Peter was, but Peter really did. Peter, you remember the hot secretary that Jay Jonah has? Peter went out with her in the comic books.
At the newspaper office?
Yes,
Oh,
like
oh, damn. Go Pete.
she's like out of high school, man, and he's dating her. Like he dated so many people, and I just had a really hard time believing that Toby's version of the character, except for when he had the black suit, then he had all the confidence in the world. Like the black suit. had him doing the crazy dance that everybody likes to make fun of.
Mm,
Um, I actually liked him when he had the black suit because I felt like that was the first time I ever saw him have real confidence.
mm.
But yeah, so I thought Andrew's Peter was charming as hell. Does that mean that I liked Andrew's movies better? No, I think Andrew's movies are subpar compared to because there's a lot to be said about the storytelling of Sam Raimi. You know, like he's like Sam Raimi's Doctor Octopus is just so amazing that
Yeah, it
like
was really good.
that's the only Doctor Octopus they want, you know, that we want. And so that's why it was funny that, you know, last year or 2 years ago, whenever the new Spider-Man movie came out, they're like, well, guess who's Doc Ock again? Like,
Old Faithful.
yeah, let's just go get him back, you know. So
Mm,
and Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin was super awesome and stuff, you
classic.
know.
Yeah.
So like but they also, I thought they did a really smart thing of leaning into uh the entire universe of Spider-Man and saying, "Hey, I know everybody likes one and hates the other or vice versa, but what if you didn't have to choose? You know, what if you could have all three?"
That was
And
very, very cool. That was super,
and
super cool.
and yeah, and I think that made that movie so awesome, and it made all the older movies awesome, you know, retroactively.
Yeah. And
As
the
you could,
Spider Verse had come out already. That was incredible.
well, that's just one of the
That was
best
good stuff.
superhero movies ever made,
Agreed. Agreed
is
completely.
Spider Verse.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so, but yeah, I think that's a perfect example of why I don't mind them retelling stories all the time, because I think there's always value in it. And I think there is value in Toby's Spider-Man movies, and there's value in Andrew Garfield's, and there's value in Tom Holland's, and there'll be value in the next guy that does it too. You know what I mean? Because I think there's just I think these stories are just things that we need. Like, you know, like I think the Greeks, you know, had their myths, and you know, and every culture has had their myths, and this is just our culture in our time. This is our way of doing it. We like to go to the movies and eat popcorn and watch our myths, you know,
Right.
and that's fine. Um, but I don't mind when they reboot Spider-Man or when they reboot Batman. All I ask is that you try to add something new that hasn't been done before, so that I don't feel like I'm just watching the same thing over again. And
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
yeah.
And I don't get me wrong. I have enjoyed all of them as Spider-Man. I think all the movies have, had something really cool. Um, but I didn't get what you're taking away from Tobey Maguire's performance. Maybe in part because I don't have the background of Peter Parker that you have, but also because it was the first big screen appearance of Spider-Man that at that scale
Oh,
for
don't get
me.
me wrong. I was super excited for
Oh
that
yeah, hell
movie.
yeah! But you
Yeah.
had to be. But also, it being that, it was also really cool to see uh so much of me from high school, just being the awkward, geeky kid. I definitely related to him, and it felt really cool. And side note, and I'll say this, I'm gonna put this. Oh, wait a minute, you release these out. You release these normally too, like outside of Patreon after a while, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I almost said a name that I'm not going to say, but oh boy, did I have a crush on a girl in high school, and I didn't have the spider powers and the cool that he eventually developed, but man, oh man, I related to so much of the way he presented that character that it struck a chord with me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And by the way, one of my favorite scenes in film history is just that one quick short of Tobey Maguire's fight with Flash with the slow motion punch dodge. And he even kind of moves his eyes like, what the hell just happened there? I thought that was brilliant. Love that.
Joe Manganiello, early
Yes,
days.
yes. D&D player.
Yeah, he is. Uh yeah, no, I think I think like it goes back to like what we were saying or what I was saying about like revisionist history is like it's a whole other thing also to pretend that Mary Jane was always the one because she wasn't. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it was Gwen Stacy is the first and the first true love of Peter Parker, and her story ends tragically, and I thought it was really sad that like we didn't get that experience the first time around in if you know when Sam Raimi's gonna tell us the story of Spider-Man. It really hurt me because I think that trauma compounds the character with the loss of Uncle Ben, you
Mm.
know, to push him to become the Spider-Man that we know.
Uh,
And so it really hurt me that we just gloss over, skip a Gwen entirely and just go straight to Mary Jane and then pretend to put her in the same perils as Gwen, but don't worry, she won't nothing bad will happen to her ever. You know,
oh yeah, it's like
it's
not talking about Bruce Wayne's parents kind
yeah,
of
it's
thing.
kind of like that, you know. So it's just it felt to me um it felt like at the time I was like, well, this is the best we're gonna get because we never got a Spider-Man movie before. But you know, like, but in reality, I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if they had done Gwen? And when they finally did Gwen in the third movie, it just didn't even make sense. It was just like,
Mm.
why is Gwen in this movie? Like, it's not. He's not gonna go date her. He's with Mary Jane. You know, like and so I really appreciated that when they were retold it with Andrew Garfield, that it was gonna be Gwen first. And the only thing that rubbed me wrong is that second movie. It was so obvious that how it had to end.
Mm.
But as much as I nitpicked and hated on that movie then, God, I really love them for doing it because that scene in No Way Home where he catches Zendaya's Mary Jane or MJ,
Mm.
and you see all of the emotion in him because he was able to do for that Peter what he couldn't do for himself in his own movie.
Yeah, man.
And that was so powerful, and like that's why I love Andrew Garfield's Peter so much more than Toby's, is because he carries that real extra weight, you know, like yeah, that Toby Peter carries the death of Harry, but that movie is kind of bad though. Like, you know, so like it makes it hard, you know, like just James Franco in general is just weird and cartoony through those movies anyways. And
That
so
was an odd character. Yeah,
but Emma Stone is an amazing Gwen Stacy,
she was
and
great.
her chemistry with Andrew Garfield is just out of this world.
Yep,
Like they actually
on
really
screen
dig
and
it
off,
too.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I have a lot of love for Andrew Garfield's or that iteration of it because they had the balls to do the real girlfriend first, you know, like
Mm.
and it's a very cool complicated thing. Like I really wish they had planned on having Mary Jane also be in that second movie with him because like I think that's the thing that is really special about her as a character in the comics is they were actually all friends. Like it was Harry and Mary
Mm.
Jane and Gwen and Peter were all friends in college or high school and stuff. And so I think it's a really cool thing that they understood how special this love was between Peter and Gwen. And then when she died, you know, Mary Jane was able to be there as a friend to console. But then one day later, she became somebody more to him, you know, like, and I think that's really cool because, like, I mean, I don't know how, how many people could say that their wife was there for them when the first love of their life died. Like
Yeah, that's pretty trippy.
that's weird. Like, and so there's a really, if you ever really do want to read some comics that are modern takes on old stories, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, they really like to go and retell old stories, but with beautiful art and like with a little bit more cohesive storytelling.
Mm,
And so there's a comic called Spider-Man Blue. It's a graphic novel. I think it's like 10 or 12 issues or something like that. And what it is it kind of like retells the first year of Spider-Man's life, like, but through the lens of Peter now. Like he's going up to his attic that, in the home that he and Mary Jane share, and he's just kind of doing like a diary to Gwen.
mm,
He still talks to Gwen. He misses Gwen, and he just kind of like retells his life to her.
wow.
And and you get to see like all the classic villains like drawn in their old school costumes and stuff, but you get to see how like there's an overarching like theme through it all and stuff. But it's just really cute because every now and then like there's a part where Mary Jane comes up to see if he needs like anything, and she knows what he's doing, and it's
Right.
okay, like because like yeah, that's a really weird, complicated relationship, but I just love them for that, for having that, and it's that's something I still haven't gotten in the movies, is because the movies are either or, right? You can't have both. You can't
Ah, right. Right.
and like, let me have both. Just let me have both.
Yeah,
You know.
it was the real deal.
Yeah.
An interesting note on that front. I do know of a couple. I won't say any names. Much older than me, but they knew each other in high school. Moved on, lost touch. She got married. He got married. They both had their families of their own. Her husband died. Uh, he got word of it. Reconnected. My condolences. They, friends, obviously. Then his wife passed away. She's, my condolences, friendly. And then fast forward like 5 years, they're now married. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of cool.
That's beautiful
Strange,
though.
unusual, but it's very
I think
cool.
it's very beautiful, like when
Yeah.
people can find love out of pain, like it's the whole point of life though, right? Is perseverance, is finding a way to get out of the darkness. The dark, there's a light at the end of that tunnel, right? Like
Yep.
always. And so I think it's a beautiful thing that Peter Parker found, and I think it's a good lesson for people reading those comic books to find that, like whether a girl dumps you or dies because the Green Goblin throws her off a bridge, like when those bad things happen to you in life, it doesn't mean life stops. Life keeps going, and if
Mm.
around the corner, maybe there's a hot redhead that wants to date you now, you never know. And so like I think there's a lot of really valuable lessons in the all of the characters, but I've always really associated with those, with Spider-Man's, just
Yeah.
because that guy goes through shit, man, all the time. And I think that was definitely something that Sam Raimi was more into, was just piling the shit on Peter Parker, like just constantly like dumping on him. I think that Andrew Garfield's character didn't get enough bad things happening to him, but then he did get a
Mm.
girlfriend dying, so I mean,
That'll
it
do
kind
it.
of
That'll do
yeah,
it.
it kind of
Yeah.
kind of balances out, I guess. But
That's.
I
I
do
think that's. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
I was gonna say I do think that we as an audience did say after that first Andrew Garfield movie, we're like, okay, can we please not ever watch Uncle Ben die ever again? Like
No
that's
doubt.
two is too many. Like,
No
and
doubt.
that's how we are with Batman's parents too, right? Like it's just like
That's been
Stop
over now.
showing us the Waynes dying in an
Yeah.
alley. We don't want that. It's not. We all get it. We're past that. So
Yeah, it's been there, done that, been there, done that. Let's not
yeah.
be there, do that again. Come on.
But that's why I appreciate Tom Holland is like we never see that happen.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Which makes me realize I need to watch that again. But that's
Mhm.
thank goodness they had the the decency to spare us that again.
But then they kill Aunt May. They killed Aunt May,
Oh, so different version of
and
the
they
same
made
thing.
you realize that that was the beginning of his real origin, right?
Mm.
And like, and he got the lesson finally then and there, and that was rough. That was painful. Um,
Speaking of which, and I know I've said this on the show before. Like one of my favorite movie heroes is John McClane from Die Hard, just because the dude takes his freaking lumps. He does not. He does not kick ass in that movie. He wins, but not easily. And
do
I
you
just love the fact that you see his struggle and his pain, and that's kind of one of the things that I like about Peter Parker so much, because you just see that dude torn. Like you feel a lot of, God damn it, I don't know what to do. You really kind of, he pulls you in with the fact that his situation is probably too much for most people to deal with, the struggles that
yeah?
he has. I like that. I appreciate that.
Do you have Peacock?
I do not. Do not.
Okay. If you ever get access to it, you need to watch Violent Night.
Violent Night. I want to say I know the name, but I don't know anything about it. What
It's a
is it?
Christmas movie that just came out like 2 months ago.
Okay.
It's with David Harbour from Stranger Things.
Okay. Yep.
Um, it's it's like an homage to all the Christmas movies that people like to say are not
Yes.
Christmas movies,
Okay. I think I saw a trailer
like
for it.
Die Hard and Home Alone and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But it's basically Santa Claus, like the Santa Claus,
Hmm.
uh, happens to be delivering presents to this mansion that gets dieharded. It basically like it's the premise of Die Hard.
Okay.
Like these terrorists come and like they're raiding like this president of some corporation, and they want access to the safe and all these things, like,
Mm.
but Santa, who's like down and out and super drunk, and like he's just really not in a good place because like he's so jaded by what Christmas has become
Mm.
over the years, right? Like
Yeah.
and like how the naughty list keeps growing and growing and growing, and the nice list is just almost nothing anymore. He's just over it. He's just like really
Mm.
over this job. But
First of all, I love this movie already, but do
yeah,
go on.
but then like he meets this little girl that's one of the hostages, and like he realizes, like she still believes in Santa, like
Something worth
she's
fighting for. Yeah.
and she reminds him that like, hey, what do you do to the bad guys? She's like, you got to give them their lumps of coal. She's like, go give them their lumps, Santa. And like, and oh man, it's from the producers of John Wick and
Oh my goodness,
Nobody. Have you ever seen Nobody?
I have not.
Oh, it's with it's like a John Wick movie, but with what's the guy that plays Saul on Better Call Saul?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know it. I'd tell you if you didn't ask me.
The Mr. Show
Yeah, I know
with
it.
Bob Odenkirk. Bob Odenkirk.
Odenkirk. Yes.
Yeah. It's Nobody's another movie like that where it's like it's kind of like John Wick, but it's like an old guy that it's almost a clone of John Wick, but it's the same producers, but
Okay.
just really good action. But anyways, Violent Night is like it's the pedigree of John Wick, but with Santa Claus beating the shit out of people
I love this.
in a Die Hard scenario. He's a full on dieharding on Christmas.
I mean, that
It's
that sounds like a fantasy script to me. I love it. I love
it's
everything
so
about it.
good. It's so
Okay.
good.
I might
Yeah.
subscribe to Peacock just for that.
Yeah,
Peacock
it's
though? That's wild. That sounds Netflixy, maybe something more adventurous. Doesn't
well, it's
doesn't
because it's a Universal movie, I think, and that's why, like, or not
oh gotcha.
Universal. Peacock is
Whatever their
yeah,
bigger group
NBC
is.
Universal. Yeah,
Yep.
Universal. Yeah, it's just where Peacock went, or I mean, where Santa Claus. Sorry, where Violent Night went. Highly recommend that movie
Okay.
if you love Die Hard. They
Yeah.
make a lot of Die Hard references to it. Um,
Sounds
ano-
dope.
Another good one. Have you ever seen Game Over Man on Netflix?
Mm-mm.
Do you ever watch Workaholics?
No, I've never seen it. I have considered it many times and just never pulled the trigger.
Well, it's the three guys who did Workaholics. They also really love Die Hard, and
Okay.
so they do a Die Hard movie, but it's like way harder comedy than Die Hard is. But like it's it's called Game Over Man, and it's pretty funny, man. You should
It
watch that
is.
one.
It is now officially in my queue.
You should watch
Okay.
that one. Like
Okay. That
like
might
I
be
see.
tonight.
My thing is, I love that Die Hard has become a genre.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's a genre of movie. Like, do you watch Rick and Morty?
Yeah.
Did you see the episode where Summer ends up in a Die Hard and like she doesn't know that she's in a Die Hard because she's never watched
Haven't
Die
watched the
Hard?
whole thing, but I know the one you're talking about. Yes.
She doesn't. They're like, "Are you Die Harding right now?" I'm like, "I don't know. Am I?" Like,
Brilliant. Brilliant.
it's so good. It's a genre. It's a genre
Yeah.
of film. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely recommend Violent Night and Game Over Man. I think Violent Night is gonna feed that action feel a little bit more. The funny thing about Game Over Man that they like to do is really cool is they make you, unlike Die Hard where you kind of barely get to meet the henchmen before they get killed,
Hmm.
like in Game Over Man, you not only meet the henchmen, you find out about their lives and their ambitions and stuff like that
Okay.
before bad things happen to them, and you kind of feel like bad when
Am
they
I supposed to
die. You know,
celebrate this?
you're like, oh shit, that sucks.
Nice.
Those two, like they tell you what they want to do with their money and stuff. You know, like after they finish the score,
I
and
love it.
it's pretty awkward. Yeah,
All
it's a
right. Well,
good movie.
I think that's going to be a weekend project for me. That's a 79% match based on my interests. Hour and 41 minutes. Three buddies with big dreams go from underachieving slackers to badass warriors when their posh hotel is taken over by terror. That's Die Hard. Wow. Okay.
It's Die Hard. It's
All right.
100%. Like that movie is 100% a love letter to Die Hard, but with the comedic sensibility of Workaholics. So
I'm into it. All right.
yeah, yeah. The
Good looking out.
Workaholics are just like three dudes who are the most like lazy, like they're the lazy people, laziest employees you'll ever find, who would prefer to just find drugs and do as many drugs as they can at the workplace and still manage to keep their jobs. And so that's what those guys are. It's just they took Workaholics and they put them in this movie.
Was that like a network series?
Comedy Central.
Comedy
It was
Central.
on.
Okay. Because that's one of those shows. I haven't had cable for God. Maybe I think we're coming up on 10 years with no cable.
Yeah.
But I Workaholics is one of those shows that I've seen a million times, and I've been like just a button press from watching it, and something else came up. It's been on my radar, but I've just never fully pulled the trigger.
It's pretty funny. It's like The Office, but with
The
just
dregs of society.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. Like even their job, they work at a telemarketer
Mm,
office. You know what I mean? So like, there's nothing redeeming about people who are working there. Period. Anyways, you know what I mean? So like,
yeah.
nobody actually wants to be at that job, and like like Dunder Mifflin is just like one step above telemarketer. Like
Right. Right.
at least paper contributes to society and to the global industry.
Yeah.
But
And
like
when
nobody,
Dunder Mifflin calls, somebody might actually want to talk to them.
yeah, exactly. Nobody wants to deal with telemarketers,
Yeah.
period. So yeah, it's pretty funny.
Wow.
Um,
Uh, here's a question for you. And I'm not asking to quiz you. I'm trying to figure this out on my own. What is what is Tony Stark's big struggle? What is his Uncle Ben? What is his Bruce Wayne's parents? Does he have like the seminal moment? I mean, obviously he got kidnapped in the first
You
movie.
know what's really interesting, and a lot of fans were kind of hoping for it, and they never really quite got it. His real struggle, like his biggest, like most famous story,
Mm.
uh, is called "Demon in a Bottle," and it's because Tony Stark has to finally confront his problem with alcoholism,
Oh wow!
and and at some point, I think uh, Rhodey takes over as Iron Man while Tony has to go and get help because,
Huh?
and so that was the thing that we kind of always wondered if Disney was going to pull the trigger on, and they never quite did it. But I will say this:
Interesting.
Robert Downey makes sure that he is at least preparing or drinking a drink in every single appearance he ever does in
I do
Iron
remember
Man.
that. Yeah.
He's always drinking. They just never make a thing out of it. And I was like,
Interesting.
one day we'll get a hero with alcoholism, because I think that's kind of one of the most coolest things about the characters that Stan Lee gave us, is that they all have very human flaws. And so like I was saying earlier on the show, how like it is pretty effed up that Hank Pym beat his wife, but at the same time, like statistically somebody in Marvel's gonna beat their wife, like
They're flawed human
statistically.
beings. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, it wouldn't be shocking if Tony Stark did. Got drunk and
yeah.
smacked Pepper around because he's that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
egomaniac with some control issues. Interesting.
yeah.
Let me ask you: do you know much about Stan Lee's personal life, like his upbringing? And I ask specifically because I think of Rhodey, I think of Falcon, I think of T'Challa, and I'm going, man, this is pretty impressive open mindedness for a white dude in the 60s and 70s.
Well, do you consider him do you consider a Jewish American, who's I think the son of immigrants, to be do you call that a white dude? Because I think a lot of Jewish Americans in the early 1900s weren't looked at as white dudes. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
well, maybe so, but even if I look at it from through that lens, I look at old Hollywood, which was, stereotypes be damned. There was a lot of Jewish control of studios way back in the day, and I don't recall. Maybe I'm just not familiar, but I don't recall as much visibility or promotion of black characters
Yeah,
there.
but comics are fringe, right? Like they're fringe. Like that's what they were back then. Like that's
Mhm.
they weren't mainstream. Like Hollywood's mainstream, right? Like so you're gonna have a harder time uh a, pushing smaller agendas, or the agenda of or progressive agendas is what I mean to say. Whereas comic books, like if you look at Jack Kirby and uh Stan Lee, those are both Jewish Americans uh, that have a lot of freedom, a lot of creative freedom, because their only mandate is make stuff that the kids like to read,
Mhm.
right? They have the ability to recognize that, like, they have a captive audience at a certain point, right? Like after the commercial successes of Spider-Man and X-Men and Fantastic Four and stuff, they have the ability to actually like speak to the youth. They know who their audience is, right? Because like they have these people writing in every day, right? Like they have
Yeah.
people, they have children writing in, they have teenagers, they have people in college, and they
Dedicated
have
fan
and
base.
they
Yeah.
have people in Vietnam, in the war, who are all writing in with their own opinions and stuff like that. And so that's going to help shape the stories that they choose to tell, right? And so I think I think it's really awesome to know that Stan Lee created T'Challa, like
That's amazing.
with with one half of the people who creates it. I never mean to say it's just him, like
Yeah, yeah.
the artists are very much also responsible, but like, yeah, I could see as a black man how you would be like, what is going on here? Like, why, why is that? But like, I get it though. I get it because the Jewish felt marginalized for a long time.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
no doubt.
like, or still feel marginalized, so like, uh, they understand. They understand what it feels like, when they see the civil rights movements happening, they understand what's going on. And so I don't I don't see it as quite surprising. I do see it as like amazing, the breadth of characters that he's created that have
It's
all
wild,
resonated
man.
with people. Yeah. I
Yeah. I
mean,
mean, and women too. Women,
yeah.
women played a big role in his work. And I just the reason I was asking is because I don't know of him, having any involvement in or support of the civil rights movement, or I don't know of him, having ever spoken about women's rights. But I look at his work and I go, man, the dude was he was pretty forward thinking.
I think I give him a pass on being like an outspoken person outside of comics, because like or I mean not being, or whatever, or because he was always he is he was the he was the Barnum and Bailey, kind of comics. Like, he was PT Barnum for
Mm,
Marvel Comics. Like, he was going on talk shows. Like, like he was going on like late night shows to talk about Spider-Man and stuff like
mm,
that, because they just knew that they had somebody really special that was that was able to be this charismatic, uh you know face of Marvel Comics. And so like, it's hard to find him talking about something that's not Marvel, but usually you can find some really cool things about, him talking about how important it is to have people
mm.
uh understand, that we all have to treat each other like human beings, because we all are human beings and stuff like that. So
That's very
um
cool, man. I respect the
yeah.
hell out of that.
Yeah, he's cool, but there's a whole other side to it, where people accuse him of stealing all the credit for certain things, and like for example, like, people credit him with creating like the Silver Surfer, but it, like, if you go back and look at like the script for the story, like, that wasn't actually even in there. Like, it was just something that Jack Kirby drew in the background.
Mm.
And then, because Stan Lee's name was on the comic, that as the writer.
Oh, he's the guy, right now.
Yeah. So there's like, there's always two sides to that coin. But like, either way, I can't help but but appreciate that, like, whatever percentage of scumbag he may have been, he was less percentage of scumbag than like 99% of other people that were out there,
Yeah,
at the time.
and I bet he never laid a hand on Hope's mom. I bet he never did that.
Probably not. Yeah, who
Word up,
knows? I
word
did
up.
think it was pretty crazy and sad that he like died like 1 year after his wife died.
Yeah,
Like,
that it's weird. That happens a lot, man. It happens a
yeah,
lot. Somebody loses their spouse and then boom. And it didn't he gonna go out in the midst of Me Too ishness?
yeah, it was
Man, that
weird, but
sucked,
like,
man.
it's like, but people couldn't tell if like it was just like people trying to cash in on whatever remaining fortune he had and stuff.
Mm,
Like, it was weird.
yeah,
Yeah, who
hate to
knows?
see that. Hate to see that.
Yeah, yeah. But it's okay. Do you know that Disney like has the rights to use his likeness for like the next 10 years?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean,
They secured the rights to like have whatever version of Stan Lee we will see. I think we're gonna get an
I mean,
AI
we're gonna
Stan
get
Lee
a Peter
hologram at some
Cushing
point.
Stan Lee. I don't need that. I
I
don't
don't
need
know,
that.
man. Yeah.
I mean,
What
although
if
I gotta say, all of the cameos that he did were freaking solid gold. I mean, he did some really great cameos in those movies, and it won't be the same without it being him.
I
I
don't
hope they don't
remember
try.
what the one was from Ant-Man because I watched both movies, but what was the one in this? What
It
was
was Luis's second story when he's talking about how bad
Oh
this
yeah.
girl was. Oh yeah, she's fine. I mean, super fine or something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Classic.
yeah. I forgot. That's right. It's at the end of the movie, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a. I think he's a bartender.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I gotcha.
yeah, it was
Um,
great, man. He was money, and
yeah.
they just. I mean, if they're going to use his likeness, I hope it is as
It
like
might
a
be at like Disneyland or something like that, Like,
mm, interesting. Okay.
like Walt Disney, how they had Walt Disney do the
Yeah.
I don't remember what it is, the World of Tomorrow or something like
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just hope they don't try to put him in, force him into places where it's just awkward. Like if he's going to be in the films, I hope it's just kind of as a background character or something. I don't want
Yeah.
you to fully realize Stan Lee that's AI created.
I always
I
thought it
don't.
was weird that they put him in movies of characters that he didn't create. I was
What are those?
I was like, I don't think he which one was it? I don't think he created did he create Doctor Strange? I don't remember.
Hmm.
He might have. But there has been some like well, for example, like Wolverine, he didn't make Wolverine. Wolverine
Hmm.
is way after Stan Lee was writing the X-Men. Um and so like whenever they put or Deadpool,
Oh,
De-
okay.
Deadpool was created in the 90s, dude. Like that no,
So
but
way
like
post him, huh?
but with that said, his Deadpool cameo is probably the best one.
I don't remember that one.
It's he's at the strip club. Like there's
Oh
actually
man.
full on naked girls dancing, and he is the guy, the announcer at the strip club.
Because that was the first
Um,
R-rated Marvel joint, huh? Was
yeah,
yeah,
well,
okay.
because it wasn't an MCU movie; it was a Fox
Right.
movie.
Right.
Um, yeah, but
I gotta watch that again. Is it on Disney Plus?
no, it's on Hulu, which is
Okay.
owned by Disney. You know what hmm, it might be on Disney Plus now. I can't remember, but I think it's on Hulu.
Okay.
I think
I'll
it's on
check it out.
Hulu. Uh,
All right.
well, sorry, I know it's on Hulu. I don't know that it's yeah. Stan Lee didn't create Doctor Strange.
Okay.
He Steve Ditko created Doctor Strange.
And when ish was that? Was that 60s, 70s?
Doctor Strange
Was
was
it that?
1963.
Wow, that far back. Huh.
Yeah. Oh, almost every Marvel character was 62 or 63.
Wow.
Every like classic Marvel character, it was just a boom cuz like he just hit so like they hit so big with Fantastic 4 that like Marvel was just like make more. Make
Hmm.
more. Keep making more. And
Were
so like
X-Men of that era? Or were they
X-Men
later?
X-Men were this is 63 because
Damn.
this is the 60th anniversary of X-Men right now this
Okay,
year.
see, I've got to. I really do want to dig into some of this history again.
Yeah.
Not to like learn everything, but just this information is fascinating to me.
Yeah, Fantastic 4 and Spider-Man were 62 if I
Hmm.
remember correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, last year was the 60th anniversary of Spider-Man and then this year's X-Men and Doctor Strange apparently.
All right.
Uh I think Ghost Rider was either last year or this year too. Yeah.
Damn.
This
Didn't know that was that old either.
just all of them. Like yeah, the Hulk I think is 62,
Hmm.
maybe even 61. Yeah. So like really what happened was like Marvel as a comic company was they used to do all these like anthology kind of stories like tales of suspense, tales of or journey into mystery, tales to astonish. That's why like uh Darren Cross in the Ant-Man movie, he's like, I know these stories of tiny shrinking human beings, or like the stuff of old, tales, like tales to astonish. He's referring to
Uh,
the first appearance of Ant-Man was in a comic called Tales to
I
Astonish.
love those little nuggets.
Yeah, and so every all of them used to be just that, like they weren't like, it wasn't like these characters had like their own ongoing comics, but it wasn't until like they would do a specific isolated story in one of the comics, and then they'd get a huge spike in letters, about like, we love that character, do more of that, and
Mm.
so they started doing stuff like that. So like once they started realizing, it's like, hey, I think the viewers seem to like these superhero ones more than the horror ones or whatever,
Mm.
like kind of stuff. So they just kind of leaned into it. So like Spider-Man doesn't, his first story was not in a Spider-Man comic. It was in something called Amazing Fantasy, and like it was actually the last issue of that comic because it was just falling. It was this the viewership was falling, or the readership was falling.
Mm.
Uh, and so they're like, Stan just decided to try this story that he had, just throw it out there because the comic was going to go away anyways and stuff. And so,
Thank God he tried. Wow,
yeah, so all of these are just stories that they just threw out into the ether to see what would happen, you know, and
that's dope.
it ended up one after another just started taking off. And so then it became really obvious. Okay, all right, they all need to exist together, like, so as soon as they started getting them established, then the next thing they do, let's make them play with each other, and then so the Avengers,
Mm.
and then it just kind of grew from there, so.
Let me ask
But
you a goofy. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, what I was going to say, but the thing that they have is they had the hindsight of like, they were operating like 20-30 years behind DC. Like Batman's from the 30s.
Oh yeah, yeah. That I didn't know. Yeah, Superman's
Superman's
mad
from the
old.
30s.
Yeah,
Wonder Woman's from the 30s.
yeah.
So like they were able to just copy everything DC did, but just do it better,
Right.
like, or do it in a more, in a way that was more relatable to the people of the 60s.
Mm.
Because by the 60s, people like Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman weren't, they didn't feel like relevant,
Yeah, they were old fashioned at
in
that
the old
point.
way, which is why Adam West's Batman was a refreshing take on the character for people, like,
Ah, right, right.
uh, and it allowed people to see it, to see it in a way that resonated with audiences, and it was like the most popular TV show like at the time, right?
Yeah, it was, I mean, it
Um,
was the style of the time too.
yeah,
Cheesy as hell, but that's how people got down.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what were
Hmm.
you gonna ask?
So I think it's either going to be a really easy question for you to answer, or really really hard. I'm leaning toward easy. You have just been dubbed the God of Marvel, and your mission as the God of Marvel is to eliminate. I was going to say three, but I think that's too easy. You've got to eliminate five characters from the Marvel universe. Who are they and why? They're just gone. They never existed. Who do you
Ooh.
get rid of and why? I got a feeling Hawkeye's gone. Um,
That's hard, man, because like here's my thing, like I can look around my room and I see like all these toys of every single character. And there's not a single character that I won't buy
mm,
because like I love I love that they keep finding ones to make that, like, there is no end to the well.
mm.
Like, and the well goes very, very deep. And it's crazy to me that we get an egghead figure in a few months from now. You know what I mean? Because like I don't think I ever thought that I was gonna get an egghead figure.
Was that a
So
prominent character at all?
no, but he's
Okay.
like, you don't understand. Like, I think he's a Spider-Man character, but like, Spider-Man and Batman have like, for every one Spider-Man or Batman villain that everybody knows, there's about 80 that nobody remembers.
Right, right. I
Um,
can see that.
yeah, and so that's a tough question to ask me because I don't. Wow, he was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in 1962. Tales to Astonish number 38.
Egghead?
Egghead.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if
Oh
that was
wow.
based on an insult for
Oh
the villain.
wow, that's interesting. I didn't realize this. Okay. So his alter ego is Elias Starr,
Okay.
and I only know that name because it came up in Ant Man and the Wasp today. Uh, so in Ant Man and the Wasp, there's that character Ghost that
Okay.
is that woman that can phase through things, and she's trying to steal Hank Pym's technology from him, right? Because
Okay.
like you find out like she was in an accident as a kid
Oh,
because
right.
her
Yes.
her dad was an employee of Hank Pym's that got fired, and he went off to do his research by himself, and it backfired and exploded, and it caused her to be the weird things she is. Her
Yeah.
dad's
Cool,
name
cool
was
costume too.
Elias. Her dad's name was Elias Starr,
No
and
way.
he was a bald guy, and I did not realize that Egghead was in Ant-Man and the Wasp. He's in the movie.
Interesting.
I
You,
didn't
you
know
you
that.
see him? You actually see him?
Yeah, you see him.
Well, now I got to watch that movie.
It's
Interesting.
Egghead. He's in there.
Huh. Okay.
Huh. But yeah, I guess he's actually an old villain of the Wasp and stuff. But so he predates. I've seen him in comics from in Spider-Man comics, so I just assumed he was like a Spider-Man villain. But I guess he's a Wasp villain way before anything else, or Ant-Man and Wasp. So that makes sense that he's in a Ant-Man and Wasp wave of toys coming out.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
But anyways, I can't answer you. I can't tell you who I would cut.
Okay. No, that
I
actually makes me happy. I thought you'd be able to go. This one sucks. This one's garbage. I get rid of this because blah blah. But it's good to hear you struggle with that. Let me then
no.
ask a different question.
Yeah.
Because I hear people, and it's quite a few people, some purists, some just fans since the MCU blew up, who crack on Hawkeye and just say he's a garbage character. He's no superhero. He doesn't deserve to be an Avenger. What's your take on Hawkeye? In fact, I think Patton Oswalt had a joke about the Avengers recruiting in sporting goods stores because the dude's got a freaking bow and arrow. But what's your take on Hawkeye?
I mean, Hawkeye is the he's the heart of the Avengers, right? Like that's his deal. Like yeah, it's the the bow and arrow is silly. It's but he comes from the circus, right? Like and like his whole thing is like he's a reformed criminal that Captain America was giving a second chance. You know, and I think that part is kind of been washed away
Mm,
in the MCU, but like at least in the MCU they kind of like I mean they kind of make it more Black Widow's thing, but like there's kind of an implication that he and Black Widow have seen some shit and they've
definitely,
been
yeah.
they both got red in their ledger. And I think the red in their ledger is supposed to be the MCU version of like he's got sins to atone for,
Mm,
and you definitely see that occur in the movies. Like when his family and he loses his family, he just goes on a
yeah,
maniacal like
he went
spree,
dark.
like
Yeah.
killing spree, right? Um, and so like I'm not gonna say I love Hawkeye, but I do appreciate that he is an anchor for a lot of characters that need that. You know, he's kind of like the Lois Lane for a lot of characters that wouldn't be
Interesting take.
grounded without him, right? Like if not for Lois Lane, then Superman would just like either obliterate everybody in all of Earth because they're annoying to him,
Yeah.
or he would
Or
just
just go
enslave
find
them or
another
whatever.
planet.
You know, like
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. But like, you know, she allows him to see humanity for all its good and bad. You know, it's because it's not like she's perfect either, right? So
Mm.
that's kind of how I see Hawkeye. Um, are trick arrows cool? No, they're kind of stupid. You know, like and like I always think it's kind of funny that there's like a finite number of arrows that you're gonna have in that quiver. Uh, but honestly, if I had to choose between Hawkeye and Green Arrow, I don't know. I kind of I kind of dig Hawkeye more just because he's got that criminal background, you know, like he used to be a bad guy and he realized that, you know, why do that when you can be helping people instead, you know? So,
What
I
do you
don't
think
know.
of the series?
The Green Arrow series?
No,
I
Hawkeye.
Oh, I think it's my least favorite of all of the MCU shows,
Yeah,
and
I didn't. I didn't love it.
it's because it 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 was supposed to be a movie that got turned into a show,
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
and I feel like because of that, it's really obvious that things got stretched out and added to like
Mm.
the LARPers, man. I did not need the LARPers in that story.
Cheesy,
Like
super cheese.
it was just too much, you know, like
Yeah.
um yeah. It just wasn't it just didn't it didn't really focus on Hawkeye, and I think that's because there's two Hawkeyes in that story, right? Like
Yeah.
there's two,
Yeah.
and so it was a kind of a passing of the torch thing, which has really been thematically the whole theme of the last phase of the Marvel universe, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
The
Iron
last
Man
phase,
and
I think the Guardians Christmas special was the last entry in phase 4, and so Ant-Man and the Wasp is the start of phase 5, and
mm,
so we're gonna get a new direction. But that last direction was the whole point. It was like, let's bring on the new crew. Like we need a
mm,
whole new group of people to root for the next 10, 15 years, you know. So
gotcha. I
I
did.
don't mind that.
One takeaway that I did enjoy from the Hawkeye series was the connection between the girl and what she was becoming. I like the fact that when she was young and her apartment got blown up, she saw him during that attack, being a super badass and kind of saving the world, and that inspired her. Cheesy, sure, but I just enjoyed that they made that connection. And it was actually him that inspired her to become great.
My favorite thing that came out of Hawkeye was watching Yelena Belova eat mac and cheese with hot sauce. And I am converted now, and I love eating my mac and cheese with hot sauce now.
Bruh, how do you not have hot sauce with everything? How you're supposed to put hot sauce on everything? And if you, I mean, I'm sitting at my computer, Tabasco right here. Come on, man, you gotta have some hot stuff.
No, I have better stuff than Tabasco.
Wow. All right. Well, here's a total left field recipe for you. So I grew up in Kansas. Used to go fishing all the time. If you ever have, typically go fried catfish, but if you ever have any kind of fried freshwater fish, easiest, most delightful sauce to have with it is straight up yellow mustard with some hot sauce in it. Louisiana hot sauce. Just mix those joints together with your
Mhm.
fish. Primo.
I do
Primo.
like hot sauce with my catfish.
Yeah,
I've
see
just
you.
I never, for some reason, growing up, never had mac and cheese with hot sauce.
Oh wow, I don't know if I've ever had it without hot sauce.
Um, Yeah, I was pretty addicted to mac and cheese my entire life. And I just have always been a milk addict.
Mm,
Like I love milk. And so I just love the milkiness of mac and cheese.
yeah.
And so I would never ever even consider putting spicy with my milk.
Fair
Um,
enough. Fair enough.
but that scene in Hawkeye was easily the best acted
A
scene
life changer. Oh, okay.
of the whole last year MCU. Like every time Florence Pugh shows up in the Marvel anything, I am at full attention because
Mm,
like she is captivating. She's so good. And
definitely a
so
strong presence.
watching her and that hot sauce, I was like, please, please. Like
I never thought
I
that would be
I
such a focal
I
point.
need to try this. Yeah.
Wow.
Uh yeah, I loved it. I loved
But
it.
you know what? Hearing that makes me feel like I have failed you as a friend. Also,
Mm.
you shouldn't have learned that from a TV show. You should learn that from me and Travis and Joel and Ramon. Somebody.
I've
Wow.
never had mac and cheese without hot sauce.
I'm
Or
sorry,
with I
Dennis.
mean with hot sauce until
I'm
like
I'm sorry.
now I can't do it without it because I just can't stop thinking about her all the time when I look at mac and
Dude,
cheese.
you know what? This moment right now that we've just shared, this is my origin story. I'm a grown man and I've just realized how much I've let my friend down by not introducing him to more hot sauce opportunities. So I'm going to change my life. I'm going to become
Do you
some
watch
kind of
Hot One?
superhero. Oh yeah, it's brilliant.
Okay.
Lenny
I
Kravitz is just on the latest one.
I don't think I've watched the latest season
Mm.
because I've been on my That 70s Show binge for a while. Um, but yeah, no, we have throughout the years we watch all of them, and I've definitely bought Lindsay the box sets
Ah,
from time to time.
nice.
She asked me not to do that anymore because one year I bought the entire set of 10, and it's taken us several years to get through the whole
Mm.
set of 10.
Yep.
Mostly because the back end of those 10 are insane.
Intolerable. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say intolerable, but like they are not, you got to use them sparingly.
Yeah.
But we have definitely found certain ones just are way more accessible than others. Like, have you ever done the hot ones the verde?
I haven't had any of them now.
Oh, dude, their verde sauce is so good.
So I'm all about
Um,
that.
but it's a mild, like
Yeah.
it's not super spicy. But
That's cool.
there's one on on the higher end. It's like number 5 or 6 from like a couple seasons ago. It's called the Tomasa. It might be 6 or 7. Um, but I found that one is really great in like chicken soup
Mm.
or uh or like quesadillas and stuff like that. And so like I've been having a lot of that one lately.
See,
Um,
I like spicy as long as it's got some flavor to it. I think
yeah.
sometimes people just go with hot sauce for the novelty of, oh my god, this is gonna make your mouth and butt explode. And to me, that's just silly. That's not
No,
condiment. That's not food.
I think the hot ones have good flavors. They have
And
like
that's cool as long as they got flavor. I'm cool. But it's like
yeah.
I've been to county fairs and local events where people just have hot sauce available, and sometimes it's just spicy for the sake of hurting you, and that's a waste to me. But even if it's crazy spicy and I'm crying, if it's got some flavor, I get down with some hot sauce for sure.
Mhm. You know what I still don't put it on? My eggs.
Oh man,
I
come
won't
on,
do it.
man. What goes on them? Nothing. Just salt and pepper, maybe.
Well, if I'm having like a fried egg,
Hmm.
it'll be a little bit of salt and pepper. If it's like a scrambled eggs, it's usually like a cheese and a little bit of salt and pepper. But um
Wow,
yeah, I just don't I like I like the I love eggs so much, just their natural flavor,
that's fair.
that I don't want to put things on them. Like,
Let me throw two things at you, Dennis. One, we've been talking about it. Try some scrambled eggs with some hot sauce. Louisiana is just a good kind of middle of the road brand that's very nice. But here's another one that's gonna sound really weird, but it's game changer. Scrambled eggs specifically, and I'm not talking about a whole lot, just some drips here and there. Barbecue sauce, bruh, righteous
I mean,
flavor.
in fairness, we have a so like because we did we changed our diets like this last year
Mhm.
like uh and one of the meals that I added to the diet is this breakfast quesadilla. It's
Okay.
basically it's basically scrambled eggs, but in a quesadilla with
Mhm.
but it's a whole wheat tortilla and stuff like that.
Okay.
That one I do eat with hot sauce. So I guess I do eat my eggs with hot sauce, but just in quesadilla form.
Okay. It's a
Yeah,
start. It's a
I
start.
didn't think about that, but I'm like, yeah, no, I do eat it there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's good stuff, man. Good stuff.
it's not that I like. It's just I don't normally like we don't have it just sitting on the table. Like we have like all the bottles in the fridge,
Mm,
just like all of them. Like there's so many of them. I mean, it's 10 from and then like some of them we run out we bought more of, like the
right, right.
because the hot ones, the green and the red, those specifically are so used in this house that they get run out pretty fast.
Where do you get them? Grocery store or
No,
Amazon or something?
he plugs it in every episode of the show ever. You
Yeah,
go
I
to
just didn't
heat
know if you could pick them up down the street also.
no, you go to heatness.com.
Okay, okay,
Heatness.com. Yeah. Yeah.
gotcha.
It's
That's
this
cool.
episode is now sponsored by heatness.com.
I just had a question for you and I lost it. Damn it,
Heatness.com.
I had it. I had it. Oh well, I won't ask. Oh, I know what it was. You ever eat grits?
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I've had shrimp and grits.
Hot sauce?
No, I don't think I have.
Next time. Game changer. It's good. It's so good, man. So good. Yeah, grits with hot sauce is real nice. Those
Mm.
little bit of salt and pepper in there, some dabs of that hot stuff. Woo. Yes, sir. You will be pleased.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that would be good. Yeah. I guess my thing is when I guess I grew up with my dad ordering ketchup every time we had steak.
Mm. Yeah.
And there was times where I could so visibly see the look of disgust on the wait staff, like when
Yeah.
that request would come in. I think I naturally just eat something the way it's served because
Uh,
I want to appreciate it for the intent, like the artistic intent or whatever.
yeah.
And so I don't think to put hot sauce on things that I'm served at restaurants and stuff like that.
I get
And
that.
then that gets carried over at home and stuff like that. But
That's fair.
yeah. But like for example, when you buy like certain types of chicken and it just shows up with little hot sauce packets and stuff like that, like, well, I guess I'm supposed to eat this with hot sauce,
Right. Right. Yeah.
Um, and so I love hot sauce every time I put it on things, but there's certain things I just don't think to even put it on.
Oh, so we got to hang and have a hot sauce day or something. It's going down. It's
I
going down.
mean, you could do the whole all 10 hot ones and see what that's like.
We could do that.
We
Dude,
did
did you
that.
ever go to that bar Callahan's on Mirror Mesa Boulevard back in the day on their wing night?
I don't know if I went on their wing night.
It was Wednesdays. They had wing night, and it was I don't know 20-cent wings or something. But they had a special that you could order called the Russian Roulette, where they would give you I think 21 wings on a plate, and 3 of them had their habanero sauce on it.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd just be hanging out with friends, and if you picked the wrong one, you were going to experience some discomfort. But it was freaking good. That place was very very cool.
Yeah.
I forgot what it turned into. Mexican restaurant or something
Nah,
now, or
it's like a
breakfast place.
fish store or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's sad.
Lindsay and I did when we got the hot ones. We made a whole, um, we made a thing of like she made a bunch of wings, and we each had 10 wings,
Mm.
and we each did the
Oh, the challenge.
we did all 10 of them, and I think the thing is that we dipped them,
Okay.
because like really the way hot sauce does it or hot ones does it is they like cover
Oh yeah, they're cooked.
each
They're
yeah they
heavily coated.
yeah, it's heavily coated. And so for us, we were like, these aren't that bad, but we're also able to regulate how much, is on each piece.
Yeah, and I think that's how you should do it. The goal shouldn't be to, challenge yourself until you can't handle it.
You,
It should
you
be
should
to
not
taste
ever
these
be
different
ruining
sauces.
chicken.
There it is. There
Don't
you go.
ruin chicken.
For sure. Agreed completely.
Ruining chicken just seems dumb. Like that's
Yep.
that's a waste. Yeah.
What's my man's name? The host?
Sean Evans.
Sean Evans. Here's one for you. Maybe even do it after this show. Go to Hot Ones. Go to an episode. Hit play. Close your eyes, and you will hear, my friend. Now that I'm telling you this, you will hear, and you will see in your head, Ron Pescucci, our former coworker.
No,
it's him. It's him. It is him. I promise you.
It's not.
I mentioned it. I even mentioned it to Ron one day, and I think he said they're actually from the same area. I think they're both from maybe upstate New York or something. It is uncanny.
I thought Sean Evans is from Chicago.
There's some connection. I don't remember what it was, but he mentioned something interesting about their connection when I mentioned it to him. But yeah, dude, that's him. It is the Ron P experience, or
It's
vice versa. I don't know who came first.
It's not him.
Try it.
I think we're in the weeds now, man.
Yeah.
I think I gotta pee, and I want to end the show soon.
Yeah.
But
I don't know
really
if you
want
noticed,
mac
but
and
during the
cheese.
show, I put a dent in this
Oh
T-Wolf
my God.
with my Bloody Mary mix, so I should go do that too.
All right. Well, you have a good evening. You have a good Valentine's Day, and you have a good
man.
Super Bowl. Those are all things you can look forward to in the next few days.
Yeehaw! I'm gonna have a good Last of Us. That's what I'm gonna do.
Oh yeah, I kind of want to do that, but I don't know if I want to do that this late. But thanks for doing the show, and thanks for watching Ant-Man with us. That was fun.
Yeah, man. Good times. Always enjoyed chatting with you guys. This was great.
Sorry, Ricky wussed out.
Hang out. Oh, no worries. I hope he's feeling better. Sounds like he had a pretty busy day today, so I understand he's tired.
Well, just before I go though, really quick, like the Hogwarts game, how much is it? Is it like a $60, $70 game?
I want to say it's 50 or 60, and then 60 or 70 for the deluxe edition, something like that.
And is it like, is there a story? Is there? Like
oh yeah, big time.
Okay.
It's really good, and
you get to make your own character.
Yep, make your own character. Eventually, you get to, and this a lot of the stuff will have more meaning if you're a big fan of the universe, but you don't need to know. Like, you eventually early in the game, you'll get to choose your own wand, and you can pick the wood that it's made of and the core that it has and all that stuff. It's pretty neat because they explain it all to you as if you've never heard of Harry Potter. But it's pretty cool. You get to pick your house, are you Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, Slytherin, all that jazz. It's really, really cool. Way beyond fanboydom.
Because I really didn't like the first book, and then I still ended up watching the movies. Like Lindsay and I watched them all last year on HBO Max, just to kind of like say that we did it and see what the hype was. So we watched them all within like 3 or 4 days, and we were like, those weren't that good.
Not my thing.
They're not that good.
That's fair.
Yeah, it was fun to watch those kids grow up so fast.
That was wild. That was a trip.
But other than that, like I didn't do anything for me. So I'm just curious. But I do appreciate that they are a big part of pop culture. And I have seen the game and it looks amazing.
It looks cool. I mean, some of the facial animations, the speaking animations could be much better, but it's a beautiful game. And you know, Harry Potter universe aside, it's got some cool combat, some cool crafting, some cool RPG elements that people dig if you're into that genre. So I think you would definitely get into it. Let me know if you pick it up. I'd really be interested in your
Mhm.
opinion since you're not such a big fan of the IP in general.
And how's your Marvel Snap collection score looking?
I am let me take a look. I've got it right here. Let's see here. Boom boom bang 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 bang. I think it's on my last page. Marvel Snap. Let's see what we got going. Uh Loading and maybe today.
It
Oh,
takes
it's
a
an
sec.
update.
Here you go. Oh, you have to
Yep,
accept.
I'll accept it.
You haven't downloaded the update? Oh my god.
Nope.
The update was
And
from Tuesday.
it's coming in blurry, but I am certified level 4.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go. We're
I'm sorry to let you down, bro. But hey,
we're
dude.
ending
Hey,
this show.
thanks, man. Appreciate
Yeah,
it. Shout
thanks.
out to the wifey, and yeah, we'll talk again soon, my friend.
Thanks for anybody who tuned into this, and have a good night, everybody.